This story started back in the 1970s in the Vallejo, California, San Francisco area. I owned a little house outside of Vallejo in the country on the way to Benicia. Anybody knows that area? And it was, I think I paid $25,000 for a quarter acre, which was the cheapest house in the area. But anyway, I was thrilled to have it. And I was going through a really hard time in my life. I had recently lost my job, didn't have a boyfriend, which to me was the end of the world, which, you know, I always had to have a boyfriend, and didn't have any savings, and my house was going to be foreclosed on. It was getting pretty radical, and I was in my 20s. And I grew up with a Catholic father and a Protestant mother, which left me confused, like, who was right, mommy or daddy? And neither one of them was a heavy practicer of anything. I think what really happened is on Sunday morning, they'd send us to Sunday school so they could have a little private time. And you know what they did with that. There were a few kids below me, we'll just put it that way. Anyway. Light is so bright. Okay, I'm going to back up just a little bit, just so I'm not so blind. So what happened is even though I grew up believing and going to the Protestant side, when I got to college, I met this guy who convinced me with his good arguments that there was no God, and I decided, yeah, he's right, and I got rid of all my Bibles, and I was in this desperate place this night. It was a Saturday night, and I cried myself to sleep, and I said, silently, if I had a Bible again, I'd probably read it, right? This is Saturday night. So the next morning I wake up, somebody's knocking at the door, and I open it, and it's an old guy that I used to date, and I said, oh, come on in, I'll fix you some breakfast. So I said, actually, I need to go to this town and get some food, just relax, I'll be back in a few minutes. So I drove down to the 7-Eleven to get some bacon and eggs and stuff. And on the way back in the middle of the road, right in the middle of the road was a Bible, a big black Bible. And this is a country road. There was no missing it. And I had just prayed, right? So I pull over and I get the Bible and I kind of throw it on the seat like, huh, right? And I take it home and I show it to him. I said, look, I found this Bible in the middle of the road. And last night I was actually kind of thinking I'd like one. And he says, oh, well, I really love the Lord now. And you really should read this. And I said, never mind. And I just threw it on the counter. Fixed breakfast, blah, blah, blah. Well, about 4 days go by, and that Bible's still sitting there. And I'm thinking, I better do something with this, you know. And so I open it up, and inside the first 2 pages, it was like somebody used it as a phone book. There were addresses, phone numbers, names all over the place. And I'm thinking, well, whose Bible is it? You know, I didn't even know. It was real kind of random. But because I had lived in Vallejo before, there was one of the addresses was on Napa Street, and I used to live on Napa Street. And I said, what are the odds of that? I'll start there. And it was an apartment. And I go to that building, and I knock on the door, and I'm holding this big Bible, and I said to the lady, yes, I'm really going through a hard time, and I found this Bible on the street, and I don't know what this is about, and there's this Napa Street address, and she says, I love the Lord, come on in. Oh God, right? So I go in, and she's counseling me and listening, and I don't know if I cried, but I was still pretty down, and then she said, you know, I think I know what happened. She said, the guy that used to live here was a minister, and he has moved up in your neighborhood. I think he's only a few blocks from where you live now. It's probably his Bible. And I said, okay. And she gave me his address, and I thought, I'll just drop it off. But she had my number and everything by then. So a couple of days later, I did kind of a hit and run. There was no way I was going to knock on his door. I just throw it on the porch and take off. I didn't want anybody preaching at me. So what happened then, a couple of days go by, and I get a call from the lady that loves the Lord. And she said, I happened to talk to the minister, and what happened is on Sunday morning, they go out, he's on his way to church, he puts the Bible on top of the car, goes around the corner, and it lands on the road in front of you. And that's how it happened to be there. And 9 people prayed for its return. Now I'm thinking, okay, if God really wants me to have a Bible, maybe I should buy one. So I bought a Bible. And then I remembered I used to like dial a prayer. And I thought, I had been a Methodist as a kid, a Baptist, a little bit of everything. So I looked in the phone book in there, and they had all these different churches and 2 or 3 dial-a prayers, and one was Church of Religious Science, and I had never heard of that. And I thought, I'm going to call this dial-a prayer, and if there's anything negative that says, you know, you're going to go to hell or anything like that, that's it for God. So I dial it, and it's a woman. And in those days, there was no such thing as a woman minister. At least I'd never heard of one. And she said, you're a child of God, and you're beloved in the universe, and come to our service. And I thought, God, I kind of like that message. I said, well, maybe God wants me to go to church. So I go to church. I go to her church. And it was a nice service, and part of the service was they lead you on a guided meditation. Well, I'd never done a meditation. I'm sitting there, and we go back, and you know, you go down a trail, whatever, and breathe and all this. Well, I had some kind of altered state. I was completely gone, and some mystical thing. So after church, I go up to her and I said, can I get a copy of those words that you said? What words? You know, where you go down the trail? She says, oh, you come next week, I'll give them to you. So I came, she was clever. So I came next week, and all they were words. Whatever happened was something spiritual, something connected for me. So I kept going, and I became a member. And then I started having psychic experiences, and I became a professional clairvoyant, and I became a minister. And now I've done all kinds of crazy things with spirit. I talk to dead people. So it's all amazing to me how that little Bible on the street kept me from going to hell. Thank you.